Found a hidden door in my new apartment, and now I wish I hadn't. It sounds like the first line of a horror movie, but it began as something far more ordinary. Me, super broke and overconfident, convincing myself I could turn an ancient studio into boho chic with fairy lights and optimism. I'm Nora Lee, 27, graphic designer by day, serial renter by circumstance. The apartment looked charming in the listing. High ceilings, clawfoot tub, suspiciously cheap rent. The landlord called it vintage character. I should have translated that as structural plots waiting to happen. Moving day was mostly normal. 8th floor, end of the hall, faint smell of dust and lavender cleaner. I unpacked, opened the windows, and promised myself this one would finally feel like home. A few nights later, while hanging shelves, I realized the right wall measured half a foot shorter inside than the same stretch outside in the hallway. Old buildings warp, sure, but 6 inches? My curiosity flicked on like a bad habit. The paint looked newer along that wall, a slightly different beige. When I knocked, it sounded hollow, not solid like the others. The next evening, armed with a screwdriver and the moral support of a true crime podcast, I pried off a section of baseboard. Beneath it, hidden by plaster, was the thin outline of a door. About 2 feet wide, handle removed, edges sealed. My first reaction wasn't fear, it was delight. Secret storage space. Maybe a forgotten wine rack. Every renter's dream. I texted my friend Ava. Found a mystery door. Bet it's full of treasure or rats. She sent back, please film for my inevitable podcast episode. So I did. I chipped away more plaster until a sliver of darkness appeared. The air that slipped out was colder than the apartment, and faintly sweet, like old flowers. When I widened the gap and shone my phone flashlight inside, I saw narrow stairs descending into black. No furniture, no cobweb maze, just concrete steps disappearing downward. For a full minute, I stood there, arguing with myself. Sensible Nora said, "This is how protagonists die." Compulsive curiosity, Nora said, "Maybe it's shared storage, or wine, definitely wine." Guess which voice won? The staircase ended after about 15 steps in a cramped brick corridor. Pipes traced the ceiling. Water dripped somewhere unseen. At the far end, a single wooden door waited, paint flaking off like old parchment. The landlord hadn't mentioned any basement access, and this place was supposed to be the top floor. Every instinct screamed above, not below. Yet here it was. I filmed everything, half-joking commentary to mask nerves. Okay, viewers, this is where I meet either secret treasure or Victorian ghosts. My flashlight beam trembled across the door. No lock, just a metal latch. When I lifted it, the hinges protested. Inside was another room almost identical to my apartment. Same dimensions, same window placement, except no windows, just painted outlines where they should have been. Every piece of furniture was there too, but older, dust-coated versions of mine. A clawfoot tub, a cracked mirror, a twin of my kitchen table covered in a gray sheet. I stood frozen, heartbeat loud in the echoing silence. The air smelled faintly of lavender cleaner again. On the wall, hung perfectly straight, was a photo frame, empty glass reflecting me. Handwritten words scrawled in pencil across the wallpaper. Beneath it read, "We didn't mean to unlock it." My phone battery flashed red. I turned to leave, retreating fast up the stairs. By the time I reached my apartment, the plaster dust had smeared my hands and I was breathing too quickly. I pushed the panel shut, wedged my bookshelf against it, and sat on the floor, pretending rational explanations exist. Maybe an old maintenance access, I told myself. Some previous tenant's DIY gone weird. But when I checked the building's blueprint online that night, floor 8 didn't show any extra space. The next morning the landlord brushed it off. Old building quirks, he said. No basements up there. You probably found a walled-off supply closet. Except that night, lying in bed, I heard faint footsteps echoing from inside that wall. Slow, deliberate, pacing like someone deciding where to walk next. I didn't sleep. And by the following evening, when I found the bookshelf shifted 2 inches away from the wall, I knew it wasn't my imagination. That was only the beginning, the part before I tried to record proof, before the camera caught something that was not me moving in that mirrored apartment behind the door. And that's where the next part of this story begins. I didn't touch the wall the next morning. I got dressed, walked straight to work, and pretended insomnia had just shaved a few IQ points off my day. Denial has always been my strongest coping skill. But by midday, my brain wouldn't let it go. The hollow floor below my feet, the ghost-smelling cold, the sentence on the wall. Every clack of a coworker's keyboard sounded like a footstep behind drywall. That evening, I invited backup. Ava showed up, armed with a flashlight, sage spray, and a wildly misplaced sense of adventure. "So this is the murder wall," she said cheerfully. "Maintenance closet," I corrected, with a small pacing issue. "Uh-huh. Let's film." It took 20 minutes to move the bookshelf. The plaster line I'd patched looked undisturbed, though I swore it bulged slightly, as if something had pressed from the other side. When I pried the panel open, a puff of cold air fluttered the curtains. The steps waited exactly as before, silent, nothing moving. Ava smirked. "Your evil twin forgot their shift." We descended. My nerves twanged like bad violin strings. At the bottom, the brick corridor looked the same, until I noticed small details had changed. The dust was disturbed near the far door, footprints overlapping mine from 2 nights before. Fresh prints, smaller than my shoes. "Someone's been here," I whispered. Ava's grin flickered, but she kept the flashlight raised. "Or your imagination learned carpentry." We reached the mirror room. My phone camera followed the beam across furniture now perfectly aligned. The sheet smoothed instead of rumpled. The phrase, "we didn't mean to unlock it," was gone. Wallpaper scraped clean to plaster. In its place hung the empty frame, reflecting us, and something else. Behind our shoulders, the duplicate apartment shimmered brighter, like another flashlight had flared. But we were the only ones holding light. I turned. Everything normal. Turned back. 2 silhouettes in the mirror. Ours, and a third, standing between them. Same height as me, but wrong in posture. Head tilted too far back. Ava gasped, stumbled into me, dropping the light. We scrambled for the stairs, laughter choking with fear. "That's it," she shouted. "You're sealing this horror movie." We did. The moment the gap closed, I hammered plywood over the baseboard and shoved the bookshelf back. Ava filmed the whole thing, promising to delete it only if I slept through the night. Spoiler, I didn't. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed once, an alert from my cloud backup system. New device logged in, apartment cam. I didn't own any smart cameras. The thumbnail preview showed a still image of my living room, captured from the angle just inside the hidden door. My hands shook so badly, I dropped the phone. When I looked again, the file was gone. No notifications, no record of the login. I decided that was it. In the morning, I was calling the landlord, breaking the lease, whatever it took. But when dawn finally came, and I mustered courage to check the wall, everything looked untouched. Even the bookshelf, heavy, unmoved. I half convinced myself exhaustion had orchestrated all of it. Then Ava texted, "You up?" The backup didn't delete. Check your email. She'd uploaded the footage before we sealed the wall. Just a safety copy, she claimed. I opened the link reluctantly. The video showed us descending the stairs, flashlights sweeping. When the camera panned past the mirror wall, the reflection lagged half a second behind our movements. And at the end, after we'd run upstairs and slammed the panel shut, the camera kept recording for another 10 seconds. From the dark below came the slow click of footsteps, ascending toward where we had just been. I shut the laptop so hard it echoed. Ava called, whisper giddy, terrified and thrilled. "Okay, we have to tell someone. A historian, a priest, whatever." Before I could answer, a knock rapped against my apartment door, 3 times, steady. "Delivery?" she asked. I stared at the wood, throat dry. "It's 6 in the morning." The knocking came again, followed by a small scrape, like wood against plaster, like a bookshelf sliding 2 inches. That was when I stopped being curious. Within 24 hours, I packed what fit in my car and moved out. The landlord refunded my deposit without argument, too quickly. He didn't even ask for a reason, only said quietly, "You're not the first." That night, I stayed at Ava's. She promised to delete the files, though she backed up one frame, the reflection with the third figure, out of morbid fascination. A week later, she called to say her editing software had glitched open that image on its own. This time, there weren't only 3 figures, there were 4. And that was when we realized whatever we'd unlocked hadn't stayed behind the wall. I kept telling myself, distance would fix everything. New neighborhood, new lease, new locks. I even let Ava vet the place first, to make sure there were no suspicious gaps in the plaster. For a while, ordinary life stitched itself back together. Coffee with coworkers, half-hearted dates, nights quiet enough to mistake for peace. Then came the noise. It started as the soft, hollow kind of knock that old buildings make after midnight. I told myself it was the radiator. Except my new apartment didn't have one, only baseboard heaters. The first night, I ignored it. The second, I turned on music to drown it out. By the third, the knocks had rhythm. 3 taps, a pause, 1 more. The same cadence from that last morning in the old place. At noon the next day, Ava showed up unannounced, white-knuckled around her phone. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. So on her screen was the picture, the one she'd saved out of morbid curiosity. I think the file's still changing. The photograph had been grim enough before. Me, Ava, the third figure behind us. Now faint in a corner window was another outline. Smaller, hunched. Number 4. "Please tell me this is a glitch." She shook her head. I checked the metadata. The timestamp updated itself to yesterday. We tried logic, wipes, antivirus scans, even unplugging every possible listening device. That night, I slept on her couch, with all the lights blazing like dawn refugees, afraid to blink. Somewhere past 3 a.m., her cat sat upright and began growling at the wall behind the TV. Against better judgment, we played the sound of the old recording, the one of footsteps on stairs. The cat bolted. The wall made a dull answering thud. "Stop it," I whispered. "I did," Ava said. The playback was paused. The thudding continued for exactly 20 seconds, slow and deliberate, fading toward the floorboards like something descending instead of climbing. We didn't sleep. In the morning, both of us knew denial was over. She started calling experts, anyone, paranormal groups, building historians, even the university archive. Only one returned her email. A preservation researcher named Dr. Anitha Roy, who studied Prohibition-era architecture, and agreed, skeptically, to meet. When we showed her the footage, she went pale. "This design," she said, tapping the image of the hidden stairwell. Looks like the secret safety tunnels added to boarding houses during the influenza outbreak of 1919. But your building's blueprints, she pulled up digital copies, were revised in 1930. And this section was supposed to have been filled with concrete decades ago. So the space shouldn't exist, I asked. She nodded. And certainly not on an upper floor. That night, curiosity won again. Or maybe morality. Part of me felt we owed the next tenant some kind of closure. We went back with Dr. Roy, gained access through the now vacant apartment. The landlord insisted on waiting upstairs, chain smoking in the hall. The patch over the wall looked recent, but when the researcher brushed her hand along it, dust seeped out like breath. "Something's still open behind here," she murmured. She drilled a minute wide hole for the camera scope. What showed on the monitor wasn't the cramped brick passage I remembered. It was a room stripped bare, walls newly painted pristine white, and in the middle, facing the lens, 4 wooden frames hanging empty on invisible nails. Dr. Roy pulled back trembling. "It's reflecting us," she whispered. And before my mind caught up, the feed blinked to black. The scope lens cracked, and somewhere behind the wall came the unmistakable sound of new footsteps ascending. I don't know what happened next, exactly. Just the blur of running, the landlord swearing he saw dust pour from the ceiling above us, and the awful certainty that something was no longer confined to mural or brick. 2 nights later, I moved states. Ava did the same. We stopped opening any forwarded attachments after that. Every few months, she still texts one word, "Counting?" And I reply with the number of figures I can see if I dare reopen the image. It's still 4. Sometimes the silhouettes look a little nearer. I've learned not to renovate, not to peel paint, not to measure walls that feel too thick. Some doors don't stay sealed once you notice them. Some rooms exist precisely because someone remembers them. And I've seen enough to know forgetting is safer.